Today I'll be doing a stellinium. I'll be doing a talk on stelliniums. There's some controversy on whether they are 3 planets or 4 planets. The ancients, they didn't talk too much about them. I mean, they did, but not overly well. But a stellinium is usually anywhere from 3 to 4 planets, not including asteroids or Chiron or Lilith. If you have a stellinium in your birth chart, it's going to bring more intensity to that house. You're going to be more agile in that house, and you're going to have more of that energy that's going to be focused towards your personality in that house. If you have a first house stellium, you're going to be focused on your identity of yourself and how you project to the world, because the first house is ruled by Aries. Aries rules the self. They can be very boisterous, gregarious. They're very charming because Aries first house, very charming. People love them. Everybody loves Aries. I mean, you can say what you want to, but Aries do have the personal charm. Um, Depending on what particular element that you have of Aries, say whether it is um, say for instance, your you have an Aries stellium and say it's actually in Mars. So you're going to have a very Marsian type of attitude. Say you have Jupiter first house with that Marsian ascendant. You're going to have a very fiery, um, very independent type of person. If you have a Pisces stellium, you're going to come across very sensitive and charitable. If you have a Libra stellium, you're going to want to be very balanced and non-judgmental. Um, if you have a second house stellium, you're about security because Taurus or Venus rules the second house. It's you seek in your sense of security, and which would be your possessions, your money, how you make your money, how you feel about yourself. Um, if you have Capricorn in the second house, you're going to find security with money and career. If you have Scorpio there, it's going to be the different result. It might be sex, or you may tend to find other people's money, because eighth house is opposition to it, and which rules other people's money. No offense to Scorpios, it's just the eighth house. Um, um, you might, if you have an eighth house opposition, say if Scorpio's there, you may quit stable jobs in relationships very easily. You focus on the material realm. Um, you may keep a well kept house. If you have any Virgo first house, you're going to be very, very particular in what you do. I'm sorry, second house. You're going to be very particular with your finances. You may be more of a spendthrift when it comes to a Virgo stellium second house. Third house stelliums are going to be about communications. You're going to be a collector of all things um, in the communication or intelligence realm. You're going to have all the latest computers, technology. You're going to love philosophy and many other forms of communication. You're going to be open to many forms of intellectual stimulation. That can go either way, whether it's negative or positive, in which all houses are like that. If you have a Cancer selenium in the third house, you're going to use it through writing and conversation over your emotions. An Aquarius, you're going to be a devil's advocate. I have Aquarius in my third house, but I don't have a stellium. I have mine in the 11th house. If you have a Sagittarius stellium, That's going to be in opposition to Gemini, which rules the third house, which may give you communication issues. And it may give you a different way on how you actually learn and how you acquire that knowledge. Um, some third house overall is going to be someone who talks very quickly, processes things very fast, very lightning fast in their ideas. They can come up with new ideas quickly and have a very restless mind. A fourth house stellium are going to be people that are very family oriented due to the moon rules the fourth house, which is Cancer. Um, this can be very tricky because the moon changes every 2.5 days, and every 2.5 days, their personality can change. And have a stellium, it's like really bulked up. You never know how they're going to act every 2.5 days, which is not a bad thing, which is actually pretty cool. Sometimes people that have, a huge stellium and mutable planets, they actually like people that are interesting. So somebody who changes their personality, every 2.5 days might think they're okay. If you have Pluto here, it can be a very unstable home situation. If you have Saturn here, lots of responsibility in the home. If you have Virgo, you seek out perfection or organization. If you have Capricorn here, which is in opposition to the Cancer ruler, and which is Cancer, it's going to be an opposition. It's going to cause trouble with family. It's going to be restrictions in family, maybe with um, maybe older people um, tend to be very aggressive with you in your home, or have aggressive tendencies in your home, or it may be a very unstable home life due to either your mother or your father, due to the fact that Saturn can be either female or male, depending on how it is in your chart. Jupiter sometimes represents your spouse, sometimes Saturn represents your spouse. It all depends. Fifth house, stellium. This person is going to be overly creative. They're going to have, they're going to be motivated to create, be artful, theater, anything showy. They could be a fashion designer. They could create art. They could be. They could run their own public speaking communication business. They could. Um, Fifth house also rules casual sex. They could have many partners. Along with eighth or 12th, same way, depending on where Jupiter is stationed. But fifth house stellium on average, unless you have Saturn there, usually you have many partners, or you have the possibility of partners, many partners. If you have Aquarius here, it means it's exalted, which may make you a huge humanitarian, but you may want to keep it to yourself versus being showy like the Leo stereotype, in which is in the fifth house and fifth house ruler. Sixth house is often seen as stelliums. If you have a sixth house stellium, be careful, because a lot of people who have sixth house stelliums or planets in the sixth house suffer from many health problems. This is a service oriented um, house. Um, if you have planets in this house, it makes you workaholics. It makes you have health issues. Not always, but most of the time, you'll have health issues or some form of like a mystery illness due to it's opposed to Pisces in the 12th, and which is, your subconscious mystery illness. Neptune covers that up, so you never can get the proper diagnosis due to 12th house in opposition. This will make very good doctors, Reiki, very perfectionistic. Um, you may help children. Seventh house stellium is people that have a chameleon like nature. This is ruled by Libra. If you have a Libra stellinium, you may be very similar to Pisces, which is the higher octave of Venus. If you have a seventh house stellinium, Libra rules the seventh house, and relationships and partnerships are very important to them. This also is the house of legal contracts and marriage. Now, if you have Saturn in the seventh house, with it might cause difficulties in your relationship because you're very particular on who you bring into your relationships. Also, Saturn is a planet of restriction, and the opposite. If you have an Aries stellium in a Libra house, you could have somebody who's very individualistic that is against marriage and against the traditional forms of monogamy or partnerships in general. If you have an eighth house stellium, you might be more towards the occult natures or anything that's hidden. Up here in this house, you could also have health issues also. This is the house of death, but it's mainly a lot of tragedy. Um, if you have a stellium in the eighth house, it could be early childhood traumas. Uh, Pluto, Uranus, Saturn, or Neptune, stellium. It can make all this even more harsh. You could have very vivid dreams with an eighth house stellium. You could have very intense dreams, sometimes nightmares, sometimes it's very intense dreams. The veil is very thin in the eighth house. Well, the veil is thin with any house above the horizon. It's still thin in the ones below the horizon. It's just not seen by people. It's often held by the individuals secretly into their self. They're very intelligent. People that have eighth house stelliums, they draw people to them. Um, you will find them very rigid. Most eighth house stelliums, if it's in Scorpio, they'll be very rigid. If, say, they have an eighth house stellium in Gemini, they're gonna feel a little lost considering it's the in conjunction. Sagittarius, they're gonna create a lot of occultism due to ninth house with religion and belief systems. That's ninth house. And also an opportunity to travel. Taurus would be in opposition, and they would reject their shadow side. Ninth house stellium is often curiosity for everything. They're very wacky and unusual. Not Uranus wacky and unusual, but very unusual. Uh, they have rose-colored glasses that they wear. They don't see people. They don't see the harshness of people. They try to look past that and understand that, nobody's perfect. There's a tendency to travel with the ninth house stellium unless Saturn is here. Saturn may put restrictions on it. They may do their own schooling. They may have issues with higher education. If you have Cancer here, which would be in opposition, they could be very loving towards their family, but often feel misunderstood. The black sheeps. They try to make a perfect home. If you have a Gemini stellium in the ninth house, it would be in opposition. They may have trouble with communication in a way that they project themselves in society. They would want to be more logical in a house that's more philosophical. And with this philosophical outlook, they might not know how to exactly portray how to speak or what to say. If you put Pisces here, it's a perfect house because Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. It's one of Jupiter signs in ancient astrology. It would feel perfectly at home here. 10th house would be ruled by Capricorn or Saturn. Um, you would be very independent. You would be your own boss. Um, you would be big on your public image. Um, maybe have a big urge to acquire a lot of possessions. A workaholic. You might not have had the best parental figure growing up due to Saturn in the 10th house. But Saturn, it can also give you the best parental figure depending on how it's aspected. That's also another thing with any of these that I tell you about stelliniums. You also have to look at the aspects in which your planets are aspected to other planets in your birth chart. Um, an Aries stellinium would be an opposite. It would be a square and would cause trouble in the first 30 years of your life before your Saturn return. After your Saturn return, Saturn would ease up and it would make it a lot easier for you to um, get your public image out, but it still may be hard because you're still going to fight the rest of your life against Saturn. But it's going to make you more focused and determined in what you want out of life and your public image. 11th house stellium, which means everybody's best friend. You're going to find issues with large groups of people. Large groups of people will like you, but other people in that group will fall jealous to you in this group. It is better if you're suited for small groups of people, small religious, small, well, I mean religious, I mean groups, art groups, small groups under 10 people. It doesn't matter what you believe in, what you like. Um, just find a group of like under 10 people. And also in this group, it's going to be working with your children is going to be best considering it's an opposition to the 5th house, in which 5th house is ruled by Leo, in which is children. Um, your creative potential could come through. You can be a very vast humanitarian, looking out for the collective in general, with the attitudes of Aquarius. 12th house stellium would be somebody in a past life, more than likely, had to have a very rigid life in a monastery, prison, sane asylum, somewhere where they were trapped in a past life, and this is their life. This incarnation is to break free of that life, is to break free of that isolation that they feel so deeply in it and get out and enjoy themselves and enjoy their life and enjoy their world. They may have a lot of unfulfilled dreams, hidden talents that people may not know about. They may even have trouble finding their own um, talents in this thing, in this psych. They have like 8th house, 4th house, 3rd house, 9th house, very high psychic abilities. They may also have nightmares, also depending on what planets are in there. If they have Uranus or Neptune or Pluto in the 12th house, or Moon in the 12th house, they may have really bad nightmares. They, depending on what the sign it's in, if it's in opposition, of course, the oppositional energy is going to cause issue and it's going to cause it to be an enemy house. If you have an opposition, say it's in Gemini, it's in um, Leo. Libra should do fine here. Virgo would give it an opposition, and but also Virgo is the one person that most Pisces find that actually understands them well. I'd like to thank you for listening to my dissertation on stelliniums in your birth chart. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'd like to apologize for my first recording that the actual sound didn't work. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the little notifications button down below. And thank you very much. We appreciate it. And goodbye.